Hey everyone, I know in MGTOW we tend not to talk about race, but we also have attracted a lot of white nationalists lately, so I thought it might be time to have a small discussion about my feelings about race. Now, I made a couple videos about the matrix of tribal identity, and in that video I talk about how stupid racism is. In fact, I describe myself as an anti-racist, and what I mean by that is I reject the entire concept of race. Race itself is no more significant than breeds of dogs. If you look at wild dogs like jackals and stuff like that, and wolves, they all basically look the same. It's only when they're selectively bred that they become vastly different. But they're still the same species. Now, the way evolution works and natural selection and adaptation is, originally all humans were basically the same. But as we spread out to different environments, certain characteristics were more advantageous to that environment than other characteristics. And given a long enough time, we started to look differently, just like breeds of dogs. But it's not significant. Now, in some environments, perhaps higher IQ was more beneficial. In some environments, perhaps better physicality was more beneficial. So races started to develop. Now, I get several comments about why I don't address the IQ differences between races. Because I've made several videos about the IQ differences between men and women, and yet I haven't addressed racial IQ differences. I'm somehow being a hypocrite, or I'm ignoring the elephant in the room, or something like that. I get these comments all the time, especially from white nationalists. And the reason why I don't care about the racial differences in IQ is because the differences in IQ are completely solvable. Now, the way genetics works, in case you weren't familiar, you get half your genes from your mother and half your genes from your father. However, the way biology works, you tend to express the stronger, more dominant gene. So if your mother has some sort of disease in the family and your father doesn't, you're more likely to express, as a dominant gene, your stronger father's gene. However, if both your parents have the same genetic defect in their DNA, you're more likely to express that because there's no alternative for your body to choose. This is why it's bad to interbreed with your sister and stuff like that, because both of you have the same genes, and even though you may not express deformities, you may have those things recessively in your DNA. And when you fuck each other and have inbred babies, they're more likely to express those things because they have no alternative. However, given an alternative, they don't express those mutations. So you have healthy offspring as opposed to deformed inbred offspring. This is why it's a good idea to take a refreshing dip in the gene pool. When it comes to dogs, all purebred dogs are inbred. They've been selectively bred with their cousins and stuff for generations, and they developed a lot of problems. For example, bulldogs have these rolls of fat that they're basically blind. Dalmatians are deaf, Great Danes have bad heart. There's all these breeds of dogs that have good qualities, but they have bad qualities. And it's the same thing with race. So for example, white people are more likely to get skin cancer, whereas black people are more likely to get heart disease and die earlier because of that. However, and this is the amazing part, when a black person and a white person have a child, their child is less likely to suffer from either of those conditions. It's like some Daywalker Blade shit. They have the best of both worlds and the weaknesses of neither. Because the way DNA works, the way genetic replication works, the body will choose the stronger, more dominant gene, so it'll take the best of both worlds. So if you want to create, like a master race, if you're a real nationalist, rah, 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 you don't want to selectively breed a bunch of white people because you're going to keep all the weaknesses in the white race. You want to breed with other races to get the strong traits from their race into your gene pool, and then you create a stronger, quote, master race. So the master race isn't white, it's actually like light brown, and it has the best qualities of all races, just like mutts and wild dogs have the qualities of all these breeds of dogs. Now, one of the misconceptions about this sort of thing is that it somehow averages out. For example, if someone with a high IQ has a baby with someone with a low IQ, then their children are going to be somewhere in the middle between high and low. And that's not true. What actually happens is they tend to have the higher IQ of the higher IQ parent. It doesn't dilute the IQ pool, it actually raises the IQ pool. And this was proven in something called the IFERS study, and this was done in Germany right after World War II. So like during a lot of wars, when Americans go overseas, they got a little familiar with the local women. So a lot of these German women had children from white GIs and black GIs. And they actually studied the IQ differences between these white, half German, half American children and these mixed race, half German, half black American children. And this study was done in 1959, well before political correctness would have made a study like this completely impossible to get past. And what they found was the average IQ of the white children was 97.2, which is pretty much average. Anything between 95 and 100 is average. It's actually pretty close to 100, actually. And this is white children. The mixed race children scored an average of 96.5, less than 1 IQ point difference. And that's the key. Less than 1 IQ. So you look at, black races across the world, including Aborigines. There's like a 15-point difference, mostly because of the Aborigines. I don't know what the fuck happened in Australia, but those Aborigines are fucking retards. But then you look at black people in the United States and in Europe and stuff like that, and they have very high IQs. Now, my hypothesis, and I have no way to test this, especially in 2016 because of political correctness, but my hypothesis is that because of this whole one drop rule where if you have any black blood in you, you're considered completely black, even if you're like 1/16th black. Because of that rule, quote unquote, people who are mixed race are basically lumped in with people who are fully black. And because these people who are mixed race have higher IQs, they bring the average black IQ up in the West. But then you look at Aborigines, because they're very tribal and primitive, they're fucking retarded. You can't even mess with them. So the solution should be obvious. If you want to bring the average IQ up, you just need to have babies with people with high IQs. The solution isn't segregation, it isn't racial genocide, it's just getting it on. We need to get like a big orgy dome where we all just go and just turn all the lights off so we can't tell what race we are and we just start fucking. And that would just solve racism, because in a couple generations we'd all just be like the same shade of brown. And we'd have the best qualities of all the races. And it would be wonderful, and then there wouldn't be racism anymore. How about that? Now, I don't think this is realistic or anything to actually happen. I mean, we have tribalism as a survival instinct, that own group preference and, stuff like that. That's there for a reason. It helped us survive in the past. Also, men are not going to support and bond with children who are clearly not theirs. So, like, if you're a white guy and your wife, because we have some kind of interracial mixing culture for whatever reason, you're not going to bond with it. You're not going to want to raise it and provide for it. So these aren't realistic solutions. I'm just doing this as a thought exercise. If we want to solve racism, we just need to start having kids with each other, and that would actually create a better, stronger human race, because there really is only one race, the human race. And this whole bullshit about like white pride and black pride, it's fucking retarded. Fucking retarded. You're basically just inbreeding, and you're closing yourself off from making your race stronger by pulling in the DNA of other races. For example, Asians have higher IQs than white people. Asians tend to be really short, except for like Yao Ming. Other than him, most Asians are really short, whereas black people tend to be really tall and really strong. So if you have Asians and black people mix it up, you're going to have high IQ people who are big and strong. What's not to love about that? But of course, there's this whole like black pride, Asian pride, white pride. Everyone has all this pride in their race. It's like these people who are just obsessed with one breed of dog. It's like the same thing. It's just a dog. It's like this, I didn't choose the pug life chose me. It's stupid, and this is my problem with racism as a general rule. One, it doesn't really exist. You're just breeds of dogs. You're not separate, you're not special, you're just selectively bred humans that have different traits than other selectively bred humans because of differences in environment. But you should want to mix your genes, because then you get the best qualities of both races or multiple races. Most races are really good at something, or they have something to contribute to the human race. This is proven simply by the fact that they survived in their environment. So you look at the races that thrived in especially harsh environments, and they have very good qualities that would be very beneficial to people. But we don't want their brown genes in our women, because oh my god, they're terrible. And it's fucking retarded. You're closing yourself off to making the human race better. You're closing yourself off to evolution simply because you have this bullshit tribalistic mentality that you want everyone to look like you. You're only breeding weakness. All this inbreeding. I mean, you look at especially in Europe where you have countries the size of states. Now, it's not so bad now, but back in the day when the countries that were, again, just the size of small states in the United States were all breeding with each other, and they would never, I can't marry a Spaniard. I can't marry a Frenchman. Oh my goodness, this is terrible. I have to only marry British people. And they're just inbreeding, and then you got like these British people with horrible teeth and huge ears, and they're just ugly as sin. And that's because they're inbred. Just like a breed of dog. So you get out You go take a refreshing dip in the gene pool, you refresh those genes, you get rid of all these recessive mutations that you've gathered over the years with all this inbreeding, and you're going to have stronger, hardier offspring. They're going to be taller, stronger, more intelligent, just better all the way around because they have that genetic variability in order to choose the best genes to express. So again, I'm an anti-racist. I think racism is fucking retarded. I'm also an anti-nationalist for the same reason I'm anti-racist. Most countries have cultures that have good things and have bad things. They have good aspects and bad aspects. We shouldn't have this tribalistic mentality of, oh, rah, rah, my culture, because there's usually something you could learn from another culture. For example, white people tend to be very proud of their culture. You know, all the things that white people invented, things like democracy and the internet and the nuclear bomb, all that fun stuff. Well, you look at other cultures like Asian culture, Middle Eastern culture, even African culture. There are things we could learn from every culture. And the thing is people get offended, like this whole cultural appropriation bullshit. Like, how dare you appropriate something you like from my culture into your own? Well, fuck you. Everybody does that. In fact, people who complain about cultural appropriation who speak English are fucking hypocrites. Stop speaking English. Start speaking fucking African or whatever the fuck. If you're speaking English, you're appropriating European culture. So you're being a hypocrite, so fuck you. But the whole point, you should appropriate people's culture. If someone is doing something right that's benefiting them in the environment, you should appropriate that if it works. You should do what works, what benefits you. That's what everything's about. And this is why I'm anti-tribalist. Because it blinds you to what's in your best interest. Where you're like, oh, I'm going to be loyal to this group rather than do what's in my interest. And you need to knock that off. It's only hurting you. It's only hurting everyone. It makes the world a worse place. It makes the human race worse off. It makes cultures worse off. Everybody's worse off with tribalism. But if we appreciated the different things that different races and cultures could bring, I'm not saying everything's equal. There are some shitty fucking cultures out there that we should not be appropriating from, but we could appropriate some of the good things from those cultures, like their cuisine or whatever. Every culture has something cool that we can appropriate, and there's certain things that we should not appropriate. I'm not a cultural relativist. What I'm saying is we should examine them open-mindedly, we should consider what they can contribute to our own culture, and we should appropriate or copy that into our own culture. Culture is very malleable. Even genetics is very malleable, which is why I don't care about the IQ differences between races. Just have sex with different races and you eliminate the IQ difference. So I think I've rambled enough and hopefully I scared off all the white nationalists. So thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.